What should I talk about today? Oh, let's see. Uh-huh. And... Alright. I suppose we're doing another Taylor Swift video, but let's take a different angle this time. Hola, comrades! Today's topic of interest, the decline of Taylor Swift's career. The obvious rebuttal to this video would be to say that Taylor Swift's career is not in need of saving. She is still one of the biggest artists in the world, and even though Reputation was not nearly as big of a hit as her previous albums, it still sold millions of copies. Whatever album she releases next, and she likely will release one soon, given her comments about wanting to release another album before she turns 30, will likely also sell millions of copies. Although we increasingly live in a world without pop stars, Taylor Swift still looms large. She has a massive fan base that will buy everything she creates, and will defend her every decision. But she is not as relevant as she was during the run of 1989, her radiant, shimmering foray into 80s pop that won the Grammy for Record of the Year and sold over 10 million copies worldwide. Taylor Swift was unavoidable then, whereas now she's merely one of a steadily declining number of successful pop artists. 1989 earned her legions of new fans, something that cannot be said of Reputation. Though one underwhelming album could never have killed a career as successful as hers, if she delivers another underwhelming project, she could well find herself pushed clear out of the mainstream. I do not want this to happen. As I've said in my previous videos on Taylor Swift, I am a fan of hers. Her good songs are better than almost anything you'll find on the pop charts. Her best songs are masterworks that are as poignant as they are titanic, and even her bad songs have flavor to them. So what can Taylor Swift do to stay relevant in a world that has no need for pop stars? That's what I'm here to answer. There are two possible paths for her to take. The first is for her to chase current trends. This is, to put it frankly, not the path I recommend. Taylor is at her best when her music is lush and colorful. There is no shortage of differences between early country Taylor and later pop Taylor, but they both succeeded by writing sharp, succinct sets of lyrics accompanied by production designed to accentuate her earnestness and personality instead of drowning her out. In other words, Taylor Swift, when she's at her best, is completely averse to today's dark, desiccated musical climate, where tedious rapping is overshadowed by sloppy, watery production. The worst parts of Reputation were when she tried to rap and delve into darker territory with her lyrics and production, and failed miserably. Instead, she should pursue the second path, which is to carve out a spot for herself in the musical landscape by changing what is popular. This is what I hoped she would do with Reputation. I hoped she would save us from the dour garbage the musical landscape had become starting in 2016. Instead, that album failed to have much lasting impact on trends, not only because it wasn't good, but also because it failed to connect with audiences, and for obvious reasons. The songs are myopic and self-impressed. Once Taylor pivoted to pop, she stopped pretending she was just like her audience, and that's not necessarily bad. It worked on 1989 because though the songs on that album were clearly from the perspective of a rich and powerful celebrity, the emotions they at least tried to deal with were raw and rich. On Reputation, however, she sings about topics the masses could not connect with because they were not millionaire pop stars. It's no coincidence that Delicate, the only single of that album with actual staying power, was based in more honest and grounded emotions than the likes of Look What You Made Me Do and Ready For It. So Taylor Swift needs to be more passionate and electric, both musically and lyrically, for her next album to turn around her declining career. Can she do it? I think she can, if she stops obsessing over her public image and celebrity feuds that no one cares about except for her and TMZ. She's done it before. While one album doesn't completely change the musical landscape alone, with incredibly rare exceptions such as Nirvana's Nevermind and the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, there was definitely a trend in country music toward attractive teenagers making softer music more palatable to a younger audience after the release of her debut album, and especially Fearless. And while the upbeat and dreamy 1989 was far from the only retro synth album released in the middle of the 2010s, it definitely accelerated the retro synth trend in the mainstream, and that most of the upbeat non-rap songs to become popular recently have been dreamy and retro synth is no coincidence. If Reputation had been a success, it would have redefined the musical landscape too. As much as I criticize it, I cannot call that album uncreative or vapidly derivative. It sounded like nothing else that was becoming popular in the mainstream. I don't know how Taylor Swift's next album will sound. Possibly she'll pivot back to country music. Possibly she'll surprise everyone and make a rock album or a jazz album or, I don't know, a reggae album. Whatever she makes, it will have the opportunity to define the direction mainstream music takes in the future if it connects with audiences. So as a fan of hers who would like to see the direction of pop music change, I'm going to argue how she can make that connection. To me, there are two major characteristics of a great Taylor Swift album that Reputation mostly lacked. The first of these is presence. Taylor Swift has a lot of personality. She's sharp, she's funny, and though she can appear as naive and childish, even on her later projects, this is easier to forgive because she's obviously passionate about what she's saying. Even when what she was saying was vapid and platitudinous, such as on Mean and Shake It Off, or uncomfortably close-minded, such as on You Belong With Me and Speak Now, she left no doubt she believed wholeheartedly in what she was saying. She committed to her material. And this isn't only because she wrote her music mostly by herself in the early stages of her career. A lot of songwriters view their creations as apart from themselves. Taylor Swift drew from the best singer-songwriters in country music by viewing her music as an extension of her passions and desires, and she brought that intensity and attachment to the normally sterile pop music landscape, which is why her songs, whether poignant or puerile, pulsed with life. I loathed Bad Blood, but it's distinctly a Taylor Swift song. However, Reputation singles like Ready For It and Gorgeous were filled with precious little personality, good or bad, which is a major reason why they have been so quickly forgotten. Not having distance from her songs meant some of her music could be embarrassing and trite, but it also meant all of her music surged with energy and initiative. She needs to recapture that if her next album is to be a success. The second characteristic ties into presence. It's her vulnerability. Though Taylor Swift's public persona has become that of a woman who shows no signs of weakness and always depicts her exes as these one-dimensional villains, this is simply not true. Or at least it wasn't until Reputation. But even that album has songs where she leans into her weaknesses, and unsurprisingly, they're the best songs on the album by far. These are songs like Delicate and Getaway Car. The former is a raw song about trying to find someone who will like her despite her reputation, and the second takes a lucid look at her public persona while expanding that gaze into a cleverly written crime thriller narrative song. These are the two songs on the album where the reputation concept actually somewhat works. And even before Reputation, her best songs were always the songs where she wasn't afraid to be vulnerable, such as Style on 1989, where she admits that although a relationship may not be the best idea, she loves being in it, or State of Grace in Red, which is the most heartfelt and open love song she's ever written. Wherever Taylor Swift takes her next album, she should thread her weaknesses and fears and regrets into her music if she wants it to connect with an audience. Now, showcasing presence and vulnerability, while important, is not a guarantee of success. Possibly the musical landscape has changed so significantly that Taylor will never be as big as she was, regardless of what her next album sounds like. But I don't believe that. She transitioned from being the biggest country star in the world to being the biggest pop star in the world. I don't think injecting life back into the pop music landscape will be too difficult for her if she manages to write songs that connect.
This ain't for the best. My reputation's never been worse, so you must like me for me.
This is my third and final video on Taylor Swift. I've talked more about her than I've cared to, but I would much rather talk about her than Drake, who stopped being interesting 3 albums ago. I'll keep listening to her albums long after she stops being a mega successful pop star. My relationship with her and her music over the last 6 or so years of my life has been tumultuous, and I'm sure the next 6 years will not be less so. Few artists showcase such a discrepancy between their best and worst work as Taylor Swift. There's no musical artist more enjoyable and compelling to follow. I can't believe over a decade has passed since she broke out as a fresh-faced teen with a guitar. Even if she never makes another album, she'll still have had one of the most successful careers in the history of popular music. I wish her the best in both her personal life and her career. For those of you who've watched all 3 videos of this strange trilogy I've made on her, I'd like to congratulate you specifically. These have been controversial videos, if the like-dislike ratio on them is any indication, and whether you liked them or hated them, I'd like to thank you for sticking with me through them. I've tried my best to explain my complicated feelings toward Taylor Swift, not only congratulating her for her good art and excoriating her for her bad art, but analyzing why her previous albums connected and why Reputation didn't. Above all, despite the semi-acrid vitriol I've used on these videos, I'd like to think the prevailing emotion in them has been hope that Taylor can and will get better as an artist and overcome her mistakes. Anyway, if you liked what you saw today, consider donating to my Patreon so I can produce even more content with presence and vulnerability. Also, don't forget to like and comment and subscribe, all that ceaselessly artistic stuff. Adios, comrades!